To introduce our special guests, please welcome Laboratories Director Steve Younger.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for coming, and hello to everybody out in television land. I understand there's California and a bunch of other people watching. It is my sincere pleasure today to introduce the Honorable Rick Perry, Secretary of Energy. In March of this year, I was able to be with Secretary Perry when he toured our California site and to show him the work that we did there. And this morning we had the opportunity to show the outstanding work that you all do in New Mexico. He saw MESA, he saw Z, he saw a variety of classified programs, he heard about the weapons program and quite a few other things that we're doing at the labs. Secretary Perry has been in his current role since March 2017, when he was confirmed by the Congress as the 14th Secretary of Energy. Prior to that, as I think everyone knows, he was the governor of our neighbor to the east, the great state of Texas. What you might not know is that he was the longest serving governor in Texas history. Prior to serving as governor, he was Texas Commissioner of Agriculture, served 3 terms in the Texas House of Representatives. The Secretary is a veteran of the United States Air Force. He flew C-130 tactical airlift aircraft in Europe and in the Middle East. And he has over 7,000 flight hours in C-130s, but primarily in single-engine aircraft. He's a graduate of an outstanding engineering school, Texas A&M, which is something he holds in common with many Sandians. Like you, I look forward to his comments today. Secretary Perry has proven a strong advocate for the nation's national laboratories, and particularly for Sandia. Please welcome Secretary of Energy, Rick Perry.
Thank you. I think I'm on. I am on. That's good. Steve, thank you very much, and great privilege to be here. And I was just thinking off stage there, Sandia actually was a catalyst in my my education about the labs. As some of you know, in a previous life, I was going to be the President of the United States. And I tell people on a regular basis, God's got a plan. Sometimes it's not your plan. But anyway, during that 2011 campaign, has got great and widespread coverage. I made the statement that I'd do away with the Department of Energy. Think I didn't hear that a few more times, particularly when the president was making a decision about who he was going to put in there. But anyway, what a lot of people don't know is that in 2012, my alma mater, and of course I was still the governor of Texas then, and they were one of the universities that were bidding on the Sandia contract. And so that process really edified me about not only what Sandia does, and to some degree, but really this intriguing education of me about what our national labs do and why they're so important. So the process of learning about what Sandia was doing, and in that case, Texas A&M trying to be one of the universities that were associated with it, and it was a great learning process for me, and for a lot of ways. And humility is an interesting thing to learn in life. So, but I just want to come and tell you, one of my great privileges in life is to do this job that I do today. And I tell folks all across the country, literally around the world, best job I ever had was being the governor of the state of Texas. So, and it's still the case. It was a great job. I enjoyed it. Had a wonderful time competing with Susana Martinez and Nikki Haley and some of the other governors, that Rick Scott over in Florida, and Governor Brown still. I'm trying to say, still would just assume he not come to California and be trying to recruit his businesses back to Texas. So, but we had this great competition going on between the states and what have you, and I think it's an appropriate thing for governors to try to make their states be competitive, tax-wise, regulatory-wise, legal system-wise, accountable public schools, so that they can compete against each other. That's kind of the competition is oftentimes not comfortable, but it will make you better. So it's one of the things that Steve Younger and I were talking about, is that the competition that we have in the world. There are countries that are pushing us, that are making us uncomfortable, but it's how we get to be better. And so that whole governor thing, best job I ever had, but the coolest job I ever had in my life, that's what I'm doing today. Being the Secretary of Energy is the coolest job I've ever had, and no offense to my other cabinet mates, the coolest job of any of theirs. And the reason is because of these 17 national labs. Those of you who have the privilege to work here, to be here, I hope that every day you recognize and absorb how blessed you are to get to work in this incredible climate. We'll talk about, I know at some juncture in here, the STEM program and recruiting young people. I just finished a little video as I walked in with the millennial group that we have on nuclear energy and nuclear power, and how that has the potential to really change the world, whether it's small modular reactors, or whether it's taking it on to that next step of fusion energy. I mean, just some fascinating things that are going on in the world out there that you all are very, very involved with. So, and the young people that are here, and I don't want to. I know we're going to talk about later about the economic side of where we find ourselves in the world and why you choose to be here versus being, over on the West Coast and working at one of those high-tech companies that pay huge amounts of money. Mostly because you get to keep more of your money living in New Mexico, right? That's the reason Jerry Brown doesn't like me to come. But anyway, so one of the things I wanted to come and do today is share with you some things that I've found out over the course of the last, 4 or 5 years, but particularly the last 2 years, that you may not know that the Department of Energy is involved with. And I want to share one little story with you. It's kind of, it's a good little view into the continual edification for me. So my first trip to represent the United States as the Secretary of Energy was it was a G7 meeting of energy ministers, energy secretaries from the 7 major countries in the G7, or all the countries in the G7, and this was in Rome. So we went over, we made our presentations, we talked about the different things that are going on. It was a successful trip. I was back on the airplane going back to, I think we were flying from Rome to Frankfurt, switch flights, and I just sat down, and from time to time somebody will recognize you. They go, dude, and you know it when it happens. I mean, somebody will see you and they make that double take. And I'm sitting there, and this guy's taking his children, 2 little girls, down the walkway, and he made that double take. And I don't know. I've lived this really interesting life for a kid who grew up on a dryland cotton farm 200 miles west of Fort Worth to get to be the governor of the state of Texas for 14 years. I've run for president twice. Been on Dancing with the Stars. I mean, it's like, come on, man. It's like, which one of these reasons is it that this person has recognized me, right? So, and he reaches out and he goes, "Secretary," and he gives me his name, and he said, "I work with you." And so, okay. So I said, "Listen, we get leveled off here. I'll come over." And I did, moved over there. And I asked him, I said, "So where is it over here in this part of the world that you'd be working with me?" And he said, "I'm at Interpol. And DOE employees, because of our technical expertise in following nuclear materials around in different places in the world." At that moment, it was one of those aha times that the Department of Energy is involved in a lot of different things that I didn't necessarily know they were involved with. And whether it's today, as late as today, I find out something that I did not know. And it was the fact that the Department of Energy launches almost as many missiles as NASA. And that work that we do, the work that you all do, the scientists in this room, the technicians, the researchers, the experts in those programs. There's an old saying that United States Marines don't have to look in the mirror and ask themselves if they make a difference. I suggest the same thing's true for men and women of our national labs, particularly those that work in the weapons programs. That what you do matters in a powerful way. And it gets right to the core of what we were discussing about why are you here? Why are you doing what you're doing? I mean, this is a room full of incredibly bright, capable individuals. The vast majority of them in here probably have multiple degrees. Technically very advanced. Why are you doing what you're doing? Well, I would bet I'd get a lot of different answers to that if I were to quiz you, but my instinct is, and I've been here long enough now to, I think this is the 15th of the 17 labs, and I've got Ames and Brookhaven left, and I will get my gold star for going to every lab, but this is really important for me because of the work that all those labs do. You make a difference in the world. The work that you do is consequential. It's the reason I'm most proud to be associated with you, is because the work that the Department of Energy does in a host of arenas, the work that we do dealing with our climate, the work that we do dealing with subjects like water, across the board, all of the challenges that the globe finds itself faced with. Somewhere in the Department of Energy, there's someone working on a solution to a challenge that we have in this world. I mean, it's just the most fascinating place in the world to get to work, to interact with people like you. So we were over at the Z what's the proper Z machine, and those of you that know much about this competition thing keeps coming back in my vocabulary and my storyline often. So they're actually doing a project test today at the Z machine, and one of the participants, it's in astrophysics, and it's actually working on looking at old stars and analyzing the outside of the old stars to actually start helping us understand how old the universe is. And it's an astrophysics program that's at the University of Texas. So there's nothing a University of Texas professor or student would rather do than to try to teach an Aggie something. Isn't that right? It's my Aggie sitting back there. Isn't that good? It's true. But anyway, so we had a little fun with that. And, but this is the breadth of knowledge of which you all have the great privilege to work in. The laboratories that we have in this department are extraordinarily capable. So, Steve, one of the things I wanted to do is take some time and to answer some questions. I think me and you having a little moderated event here would probably be better than me getting up and doing. I'm not going to sing and I'm not going to dance. So why don't we? Hey, listen. Let me just say thank you again. As I hope the passion of what this is a great privilege for me to be able to work with you, to be able to give back to Steve shared with you. I chose some time ago in my life to be involved in public service. I didn't necessarily know that's what I was doing when I was making those decisions. As a boy with the Vietnam War going on and moving into to the United States Air Force to fly. And I didn't necessarily know that that's what I was doing when I decided that I would run for state representative in 1984. But in hindsight, it's exactly what I did. And I hope each of you, in your way, recognize that you're involved in public service. You're giving back to your community. Some of you do it in a lot of different ways. I know you and your wife do it through some ways, but you're doing it in your service to your country, being a part of this national lab. And I just want you to know from my perspective that it's not lost on me how important that is and how proud I am to be able to be a little part of of a grander scheme to make the world we live in a better place. So thank you for that. Okay.
So thank you, Mr. Secretary, for that fun speech. And right after this event, tickets for the Secretary's next show are available. Right afterwards at the box office right outside the auditorium. And I had a moment with you, Mr. Secretary, where, and Valerie and others will attest to this, I was standing outside the Forrestal building, and you're getting out of your vehicles and entourage, and you looked at me and you did kind of one of those, hey, I know you. And you walked in. So I had a moment just like that with the Secretary. So at least that's what I'm going to say. That's my story. Sticking to it. So thank you very much. You touched a little bit about this first question. You touched on the subject, and you mentioned in your remarks that other countries are pushing the United States to be better. And you talked about the challenges of high tech pulling away talent. And what we're finding here at Sandia and other labs, that it's getting difficult to continue to hire the best and brightest with so much competition from other high-tech companies, and particularly our California site. To that end, does DOE have any plans to strengthen our total comp and benefit packages so that all DOE labs are better to compete for talent? Because that is the strain that we're feeling.
Yeah. I want to correct, if the perception was that other countries compete to make us better, I want to, there's a number of countries out there compete to defeat us, okay? Please don't think I live in some Pollyanna world where I'm trying to tell you, boy, the Russians are out there just trying to make us be better. They're not. Okay? But their programs and the things that they do and the messages that they send out there. I'm just back from a trip to Russia. Representing the United States, I met with my counterpart. I met with the Deputy Prime Minister, and I was very clear with them and made the very powerful point to them that we don't have to be in this confrontational relationship. But until they start showing that they can be citizens of the world and good citizens of the world, the United States is going to punish them for the activities they're involved with, whether it's stopping the transmission of gas through Ukraine, whether it's being involved in Syria, whether it's killing people in the UK that they don't like. So, I just want to make it abundantly clear is that this isn't all just fun and games out there. And what you're doing is really important. And so you've chosen to do it, I will suggest to you, not because you're going to get paid more money working at the DOE. But I'm going to let Steve kind of add on to the back end of this story too, or not the story, but the back end of these remarks about what we are doing, and because you obviously we don't want you having to be looking over your shoulder going, I may need to go work somewhere else because they're not paying me enough money to take care of my family. And I totally understand that we have a responsibility as a country to make sure that the men and women who work for us are being appropriately compensated. Now, are we going to pay you as much as Google or Facebook or one of these other high-tech companies? We may not. And the reason we may not is because, number one, we know that what you're doing is important, and you know it's important. And you'd rather be here working at a little less money than you would be somewhere else, waking up in the morning, looking in the mirror and going, am I really making a difference? Because you are. So Steve, what I'd like, I know we got some programs that, and I'm a big believer in incentive programs. I'm a big believer that, you reward folks and give them bonuses when they meet particular benchmarks and what have you. Would you kind of share with them what we talked about a little bit earlier about some of these programs that DOE and NSA have to address the question?
Yes, sir. Over the last number of months, we've made a case to the Department of Energy and to NNSA that we're looking for an extraordinary group of people here. We're not just looking for average, we're looking for the best and the brightest. And to get the best and the brightest and to keep them, you have to create an environment. And yeah, it's partly money, but it's also all of the other things associated with work-life balance and so forth. So over the last, I'd say, month or so, there's been a bit of a sea change within NNSA. The administrator, Lisa Gordon-Haggerty, has put workforce management amongst her highest priorities, recognizing that if anything wonderful is going to happen in this place, it's going to happen because of you. So she's taking a fresh look at compensation. She's taking a fresh look at benefits. So this is an exciting and an encouraging time, and it's coming from the administrator, which is great news.
And here's what I would ask you to do. One of the things that I have been trained to be through the course of the years is be a manager. You know, when you're the CEO of the 12th largest economy in the world, you learn to manage some things. So being a manager, and one of the ways that I found to be a successful manager was to listen. So what I would ask you to do with this in mind, with the knowledge that, the Administrator Gordon is going through this process, your ideas about how to make this more appealing, send those in. If you don't mind, I'm going to flow them up
directly to me, and I'll forward
through
them
to
to
you.
the administrator.
So, he's my wingman.
Sir.
Anyway. All right. Sorry. No, it's perfect. It's exactly what we needed to be doing. I didn't work that out with you before, but
We'll talk later.
yeah.
Our next question, and you touched on this a little bit, but now that you've been to both our sites in California, here in New Mexico, what is your biggest takeaway about Sandia National Laboratories?
Oh, that one's pretty easy. I mean, it's the, I've already said it, you guessed it, and it's not a guess. It's the reality is that the people that are at these labs, I mean, that's the, you think back to the history of how this place was created, the old Atomic Energy Commission, then became the Department of Energy, and I want to take just a little opportunity. Most people, when they think about the Department of Energy, they don't think about a lot of the technology that's going on in these labs. And I like to remind people that in that word of energy, how the world has changed in the last decade. I mean, and some of that change is because of work that was done at a national lab. And what I'm talking about here is 15 years ago, there was a guy giving a pretty interesting speech around the country called Peak Oil, that we'd found all the fossil fuels, we'd found all of the oil and gas, and even if we did find more, it would be impossible to, or not impossible, it would be very expensive to produce. And there were some innovators, some scientists, researchers at national labs, working with the private sector, guys like George Mitchell, who was the man who really came up with the concept of hydraulic fracturing. And in those labs, on the directional drilling side, they were able to keep polycarbonate onto their drilling bits so that they could efficiently use these bits. And today, it is a stunningly powerful industry based in the United States. We are now the largest oil and gas producing country in the world. And a decade ago, we were beholden to a lot of different countries that may not have had our best interest in mind. This transition that we've seen to LNG and to natural gas, Congressman, it has changed the geopolitics of the world. I mean, it's fascinating what's going on. And it's not just about the geopolitics. I tell people, I said, listen, there is a, excuse me for sounding a little Texas-centric here for a moment, but it's what I know intimately. But as I shared with you, that's the 12th largest economy in the world. And because of good tax policy, let people keep more of what they work for, regulatory climate that's fair and predictable, a legal system that doesn't allow for oversuing, and accountable public schools. Accountable public schools basically translates into a skilled workforce. So if you were Hispanic and you lived in the state of Texas, you lived in the state that had the #1 high school graduation rate for Hispanics in America. I mean, that's powerful stuff that allows people's lives to be changed. And while all that was going on, people were moving to the state. You know, I talked about going to California, recruiting these businesses into California, and probably came over here a time or two. But the state grew faster than any other state in the nation. There was more wealth created there. There were 7 million people. How many people live in New Mexico total?
Coming up on 2 million.
Okay, so from 2001 through 2011, Texas added 7 million people. Let's see, let me do my math there. That's about 3x the entire state of New Mexico. It's a stunning number of people. You know what that means, Dave? I mean, you know what 7 million people means. That's a lot of pickup trucks, right? Everybody got a job, getting them a job, buy a new pickup truck. So what else does that tell you? Non-point source pollution, right? So this is a state that had massive growth in population, 7 million people added. That was a 20% increase over that period of time. They had a manufacturing-based growth. They had all that petrochemical footprint on the Gulf Coast, which, oh, by the way, that's kind of a pretty good place to produce ozone because of where it is latitude-wise. So your conventional wisdom would tell you this. Yeah, you did a good job of recruiting people, building the economy up and what have you, but boy, you had to play hell with the environment. But here's reality. Because of some decisions that were made in that state, some of them were to incentivize companies to move out of their old inefficient fleet engines into more efficient, substantially more friendly type of emissions engine program. We had the most substantial wind energy growth in the country, became the #1 wind energy producing state in the nation. Matter of fact, Texas produces more wind than all but 5 countries. And they had this massive shift over from old inefficient power plants to cleaner burning natural gas. We had a 60% plus 60% reduction in NOx, a better than 50% reduction in SOx, SO2, and had almost a 20% reduction in total carbon footprint. Isn't that the goal? Isn't that what we're looking for in the world? And I'll suggest to you it's because of innovation and technology that we've seen, some of it coming out of national labs. But that's one of the things that excites me and drives me to get to go to a country like India and talk to them about, listen, they're going to use fossil fuels. And what we need to do is get them to use fossil fuels in as environmentally friendly way as we can. We want them to see our technology that we're developing, the carbon capture technology that's coming out of national labs. You know, my hope is in visiting places and, with fusion and you know, 30, 40 years down the road, what you're doing matters. And it's making a difference in this world we live in. So, I mean, we've got a great story to tell in this country. And right at the epicenter of it, I will suggest to you, is the Department of Energy, and particularly our national labs. I have no idea if that's a question you asked or not, but
it was informative, so thank you. So here's my opportunity, Mr. Secretary, to deviate a little bit from the questions, and somewhere Jess's face is turning white. And I think the DOE lab complex as a whole suffers from an awareness issue. Mm-hmm. People don't know what we do as a complex. And you had mentioned that you're still learning. Even though you're in it day in, day out, you're still learning every day. And wouldn't it be great if we launched a Marine, Air Force, Army type of marketing campaign that demonstrated DOE's breadth as a national laboratory and the reach to attract the highly skilled, the highly talented folks out there that in many cases don't even know we're here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And one of the things that we've tried to do, and we've set it up now out of the Forestall building, you know, as headquarters, so it can reach out, is a program. And this is a little bit narrowly defined, but to make nuclear cool again. To go out and to tell the great story about small modular reactors, to tell the story about you know, this emissions-free way to power the world, to be able to have these facilities in places around the world. My life really got changed when I went to Africa, and a continent where there are hundreds of millions of people who've never had so much as a light bulb, and how light can so change their world, how that power into their villages can change their world. And anyway, I don't want to get off on that, but a marketing campaign, and I hope, you know, I'm not going to say I'm the most public relations oriented secretary that they've ever had before. I don't know that, but I do know how to market. I do understand public relations, and I understand that you got to have a good product, and we got a good product. And I think it's important. It's one of the reasons I go to the labs. It's one of the reasons I travel around the world to tell the story about DOE and what we're doing, because we got a heck of a story to tell. And it's kind of a sexy story when you think about it. I mean, these are fun things. These are really fascinating things and interesting technologies that we're bringing to the globe. So again, any ideas about? Send them into my man here.
State.
Sandia.gov.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Stay tuned for that, because there's a group of communication directors from throughout the labs that are trying to put something together for consideration. Yeah, cool. And finally, it's my job to keep you on time, so I promise to do that. Our last question. By now you visited, if not all, many of the labs within the DOE complex. Where do you think the national laboratory systems can make the best contributions in the future?
You know, I'm almost afraid to try to answer that, because, I mean, there are projects going on right now that have the potential to really change the world, and you know, whether it's fusion energy, whether it's what we saw today at the Z Lab. So I think it's really important for us to continue to go share with, and by the way, Congressman Pierce, I just want to say thank you for your support through the years to this lab. Economically, I'm going to talk to your governor here in a few minutes, and these national labs, and in New Mexico in particular, matter of fact, DOE projects, whether it's WIP, whether it's Sandia, whether it's Los Alamos, powerful economic impact on the state. Now, I will suggest to you what you're doing here way more than compensates the dollars that flow in, that in turn, you know, finance the families and the livelihoods of all of the employees here and the contractors and what have you. But it's really important that we maintain and really. I don't mind using the word, increase the funding for these programs that are going to have massive impacts on the future. And here's the other thing that I try to share with my friends and those that will listen back in Washington, D.C. When you talk about research, basic research, when you talk about applied research, it's not all going to be successful. We're going to be out there funding some projects that from time to time we don't see a return on the investment right off the bat. We might in 20 years, and if we didn't do that research. And so it's really important, the scientific freedom, the scientific focus, the scientific support that comes to places like our national labs. And I would suggest to you that that's the single most important thing that we do. You betcha, we gotta go show some successes, and more often than not. But being realistic about the work that the Department of Energy does, along with DARPA and DOD, they all have some important research roles out there. But what we do, how we present it, and how we go toot our own horn, so to speak, so that people really understand the importance of what DOE is going to be involved with. I don't know what the next big thing is going to be. I'm not sure the next Secretary of Energy or the one after that will necessarily know what the next big thing is going to be. Here's what I do know. It'll come from the fertile mind of some DOE employee who's working on a project today that literally will change the world in a powerful and a positive way. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.